If your idea of youth power is just TikTok dances, you're missing out. In Nepal, youth power means something much bigger, much bolder, and far more consequential. It's not just about viral trends or catchy hashtags. It's about standing up, speaking out, and demanding real change, even when the odds seem impossible. In 2025, Nepal's Gen Z showed the world what happens when a generation refuses to be silenced. If your government thinks it can silence Gen Z with a social media ban, think again. In a world where information travels at the speed of light, trying to shut down the voices of millions of young people is like trying to hold back a river with your bare hands. Nepal's leaders underestimated just how connected, creative, and determined their youth had become. If your streets are filled with young protesters, you're witnessing history. In mid-2025, Nepal erupted. The capital, Kathmandu, became the epicenter of a movement that would shake the foundations of the country's political system. What started as scattered online complaints quickly turned into a tidal wave of real-world action. It began with whispers in university corridors, late-night group chats, and passionate debates in coffee shops. Young people, frustrated by years of broken promises and mounting corruption, decided enough was enough. They organized, strategized, and mobilized, using every tool at their disposal, from encrypted messaging apps to old-school word-of-mouth. Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli was facing heat for alleged corruption and nepotism. But what pushed things over the edge? For years, Oli's government had been accused of favoring friends and family, siphoning off public funds and ignoring the needs of ordinary citizens. But the final straw came when the government tried to silence its loudest critics, the youth. A sudden ban on Facebook, X, and other social media platforms, supposedly to fight fake news, but most people saw it as a way to silence dissent. Overnight, millions found themselves cut off from their favorite apps, unable to share their frustrations or organize protests. The government claimed it was for national security, but the timing was suspicious. The ban came just as anti-corruption protests were gaining momentum online. The reaction was immediate and intense. For many young Nepalis, social media wasn't just a pastime. It was their lifeline to the world, their platform for activism, and their tool for holding leaders accountable. The ban felt like a personal attack, a blatant attempt to erase their voices from the national conversation. Gen Z wasn't having it. Even with the ban, young Nepalis found ways to connect, using VPNs, alternative apps, whatever it took. Tech-savvy and resourceful, they quickly adapted, sharing tips on how to bypass government restrictions and keep the movement alive. In chat rooms and encrypted groups, protest plans spread like wildfire. The digital resistance was as creative as it was relentless. Young activists taught their parents and neighbors how to use VPNs, printed out QR codes linking to secure apps, and distributed digital flyers for protest meetups. The government's attempt to silence them only made their voices louder. Kathmandu's streets filled up fast, thousands demanding an end to corruption and a return of their freedom to speak out. The protests grew bigger by the day, drawing in people from all walks of life. Students, artists, tech workers, and even some older citizens joined the cause, united by a shared sense of injustice and hope for a better future. The movement wasn't just about anger. It was about creativity and hope. Protesters painted murals, wrote songs, and staged street performances, turning Kathmandu into a canvas of resistance. Art became a weapon, music a rallying cry, and every slogan a spark for change. As protests grew, things turned violent. Police responded with tear gas and live shots. The government hoped that a show of force would scare the youth into submission, but it only fueled their determination. The world watched as images of clashes and chaos flooded international news. The crackdown drew global attention. International media outlets picked up the story, and solidarity messages poured in from around the world. Hashtags like #NepalYouthRise and #OliResign trended globally, putting even more pressure on the government to listen. 19 people lost their lives. Over 100 were injured. The cost was high and the pain was real. Families mourned and the nation grieved. But even in the face of tragedy, the movement pressed on, honoring the fallen by refusing to give up. Candlelight vigils lit up the night as thousands gathered to remember those who had paid the ultimate price. Their sacrifice became a rallying point, a reminder that the fight was about more than just politics. It was about dignity, justice, and the right to be heard. But the movement didn't back down. If anything, the violence only strengthened their resolve. Each setback was met with renewed energy, each loss with a promise to keep fighting. The youth of Nepal had tasted the power of collective action, and they weren't about to let it go. Leaders emerged from the chaos, young, passionate, and fearless. They organized relief for the injured, coordinated legal aid for those arrested, and made sure the movement stayed peaceful and focused. Volunteers distributed food and water, turning protests into communities of care and solidarity. Finally, the pressure worked. Ali resigned in early September. The announcement sent shockwaves through the country. For the first time in decades, it felt like the people, not the politicians, were in control of Nepal's destiny. The streets erupted in celebration. Fireworks lit up the sky and strangers embraced in joy. For many, it was the first time they truly believed that change was possible. The resignation wasn't just a political victory, it was a cultural shift, a moment when hope triumphed over fear. The social media ban was lifted. Suddenly, the digital world came alive again. Young people flooded their feeds with stories, photos, and videos from the protests. The hashtags that had been banned became symbols of victory, and the internet buzzed with pride and relief. Stories of bravery and resilience went viral. Influencers and activists shared behind-the-scenes footage, interviews, and reflections on what the movement meant for Nepal's future. The world watched as a new narrative took shape, one where young people were the heroes. Now, Nepal's youth are being hailed as heroes, and the country is asking, is this the start of real political change? The old guard is on notice, and a new generation is stepping up to lead. The question on everyone's mind, can this momentum last? Already, youth leaders are pushing for deeper reforms, demanding transparency, accountability, and a seat at the table. They're not just protesting, they're participating, shaping the policies that will define Nepal's future. What do you think? Will this spark a new era for Nepal? Drop your thoughts below. The world is watching, and the story of Nepal's youth uprising is far from over. One thing is clear. When a generation stands together, even the mightiest walls can fall. The future of Nepal is being written right now, by its youth, for its people, and for the world to see.